So, Dima, thank you very much for joining us today, and for taking the time out in a very, very busy and I'm sure a very hectic schedule with everything that's going on in the world and in particular to Palestine. I wanted to take a bit time to just get a bit more personal with you and ask you, what's your background to your own journey into the work of diplomacy?
Um, so I joined this work 14 years ago, basically in Geneva. I started 2010. That was my first experience. Of course, when I joined, my perception was different. I think when you're outside of the UN or outside of this work, the way we look at it as if it's really something that could make a difference, or this is the impression we get. Of course, the reality was very different. As I started the journey, I started realizing that it's not what I thought it would be. I felt empowered, I think, as I started learning more about the law as well, international law, regarding Palestine specifically. I thought it's the laws on our side, and we could use it in a better way to empower ourselves to do things. As we started moving forward, of course, the law's on our side, and there's much to be done, and it's important to use it in all peaceful means available to us. But at the end of the day, it was obvious that it was a political game. There are political interests, and it's the interests of certain states are not do not serve for them to stand with justice, then they just don't do it. And I think the human side as well was important in dealing with a diplomatic community, but it also came to a point that it's really not enough to show empathy on a personal level when you are in a position of power. In one way or another, even as diplomats, we're in a position of responsibility. So if we have to do certain things because it's the right thing to do, maybe we will lose something in the process. But I mean, at least for me, I think this is why we're here, to push for things to be better and to break the pattern, not just surrender and obey to the system, just thinking that this is the system. What can I do?
A lot of people watching the diplomatic circle from the outside, we connect with these circles through the news, primarily social media. A lot of people don't get the insight into the person who's doing the leadership. Can you maybe share your personal story? Where did you grow up? Where are you from? And how did you end up in Geneva?
So where from? I'm originally from Gaza. My father is from Gaza, and my mother is from Akka, northern Palestine now as well. I was born in Tunis. I grew up there until the age of 10. The reason I was in Tunis because my parents were in the PLO at a certain moment, and they were in Lebanon. We moved to Tunis, so we ended up there. After signing the Oslo Agreement in 93 and 96, we moved to Gaza. We stayed there for 2 years. It was quite a shift to move from Tunis to Gaza. It was all these different mixed feelings. It was the first encounter with home. Uh, it still also didn't really feel home because of the situation, even back then. In comparison, of course, we could say it was slightly better, but it was not. It was under the colonial regime still. Uh, Even with the hopes after Oslo, but I mean, I think now we know, and it was always then that nothing much will really happen. After Gaza, we moved to Ramallah in '98, and then the second Intifada started as we were in Ramallah. So that was a bit of a difficult experience, I would say, to live through it, especially the invasion of Ramallah for almost a month. Had a ground invasion in Ramallah, we had curfews, bombing, siege. So as a teenager as well, first time experiencing such a thing, it was not easy.
Right.
And then afterwards, we moved to Egypt. First to Alexandria and then to Cairo. So it's quite a journey, I'd say. But I think as I was going through the journey, I think I was less grateful because the moving was not very pleasant. You lose some sense of security as well because you don't know where home is anymore. Where are you really from? To some extent. But I think I think I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this journey, for this experience. So I'm grateful for it. I think I learned a lot from this about myself, about my family, about Palestine. It it's it gave me a different perspective about how things are and the way I see the world. And then I left Egypt to do my master's in Spain, and as I was there, I got this opportunity to come to Geneva. And to be honest, at the beginning, I wasn't sure about it. Are you sure this is what I want to do, or if this is the path I want to also follow? Given that I grew up in a very political family as well, so I was not very decisive about if this is what I want to do or I want to do something different and help in the process as well. But I thought let's give it a try. And 14 years later, well, here I am.
What made you stay in it? What made you decide, like, I'm going to stay in this?
I think I was learning a lot in this process, and as a person, I was growing as well. On a personal level, this experience as well helped me. It has been a very bumpy ride, I would say, but it shaped me in a different way. Also, what helped is the team that I've been working with, especially the ambassador, my boss. I think I'd say he's a unique boss and manager in the sense that he empowers us. He gives us space to try, and that was really important. Like I felt I have a space to experience and to try and to give my opinion and to speak openly about different things and have a healthy discussion, even if we end up not agreeing. But there's respect in the way things are. So I think that was a major factor, to be honest, for me as well to stay.
Mm. In the beginning of this conversation, you sounded like you had some cynicism towards the international system. Can you comment a bit more on that, and how are you navigating as an influencer on behalf of the Palestinian people while you're coexisting with this cynicism as well?
I do have, to be honest, cynicism of international system, but it came because I've been here for 14 years, to trying to find all the peaceful, democratic, legal means to achieve justice and freedom for the Palestinian people. And not just Palestine, because after all, it's all connected. It's not just about one situation, but the cynicism, of course, comes from the outrageous hypocrisy of standards of member states, especially the Western states, of course, because those are the ones that preach about human rights, international law, and then when it comes to the situation, everything shifts into a completely different direction. The law has all of a sudden has a different interpretation. It is not what we know. It changes completely when it comes to Israel. And to be honest, of course, it's frustrating. Nonetheless, we have to keep. We try, we push, we get certain things done. We've done a lot of, work within this space, whether it's language and resolution, whether it's different mechanisms that we establish to keep documenting, to look into different issues and areas when it comes to occupation. But it is now, especially now, what's going on, and it is not enough. And there needs to be a real political will. And the political will, unfortunately, I don't think it will come from the leaders, but I think people have a responsibility right now to turn things around. I think they're the one who will contribute majorly to the change. So this is why the work we do is important, but it needs to be followed up, and there need to be it needs to be more known as well to the public, I think. And this is why I think the role of social media is important in letting other kind of audience know what actually we do and how can they use this work as well to push their own systems.
And that's one thing we're going to be speaking about. That's the Human Rights Council. The meeting has been ongoing for 1 month, and it ended about 2 weeks ago, if I'm right. Can you tell us a bit about the Human Rights Council and what the resolutions were, those that were passed, but also the ones that were suggested, and how states have responded to that?
So the Human Rights Council, I'll just get a bit of a briefing of what is the Human Rights Council to begin with, just so that people understand a little bit. So the Human Rights Council was created in 2006. Before that, there was the Commission on Human Rights, and it is a subsidiary body of the General Assembly. The membership of the Human Rights Council is just 47 members, so it's not a universal membership. They meet 3 times a year, and it covers, all human rights related issues. There's a lot of thematic issues, like sport, children, torture, housing, many other, and also addresses country situations when there's a need to address. Of course, over the years, it became very polarized and politicized, because unfortunately, at the end of the day, it's a state-led process. So there's always a political aspect there. When it comes to Palestine, the session usually is one of the big sessions for us because it's where we have our resolutions. We have 3 resolutions, one on self-determination, one on Israeli settlements, and one on human rights situation and ensuring accountability and justice in occupied Palestine territory. This session was different than any other session. It was the first session after the genocide in Gaza. So it was important that we address the situation in a comprehensive way as much as we could, because there's nothing that could really address the terror and the horrors of what we've been witnessing for the past 7 months now. But and it was not easy because we wanted to add also language that leads to action, and language where we can push governments to take concrete measures, not just making statements or expressing concern. It's time to really take action. So in the accountability resolution, for instance, we had managed to have reference calling on states to cease arms transfer, requesting a report on this issue from the Commission of Inquiry that we have established in 2021. It's an ongoing inquiry. And the settlements as well was a very important additions related to trade. For also states to cease trade with settlements, for companies to terminate their businesses as well. And settlements, there's also a lot of additions on sectors and and suffer violence. One of the important requests we made also to the Commission of Inquiry is to create kind of a settler database and to identify them so that we know who they are, and basically to push states to start taking imposing sanctions as well and taking measures against. Of course, we managed to pass them with good results, I would say. The process, though, was not very easy. It's really frustrating, given that there's still an ongoing genocide. So this is where sometimes you feel, in the way you negotiate, it's like the human side is completely devoid of this conversation. Sometimes you wonder, like, how can you be able to convey certain messages and certain comments when there's a genocide happening in front of your eyes? So that part is really hard to comprehend sometimes, and it's frustrating. It's hard to keep calm. It's hard to stay diplomatic, because when we did that, also nothing happened. It's like everything we've been trying to do, and now we ended up with a situation we're witnessing. So it's sometimes it feels like what's the point, really? But for me, at least, it was the most difficult part was this kind of discussions. It's like I just don't understand, really. No, I understand from one side, someone comes to me is like, we're really sorry for what's happening. Hope your family's doing well. This is horrible. And then, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. And there is my government's position. They try to push as much as they can. I would say that many of them tried a lot. Maybe the results would have been better if it was someone more obeying to the system the way it is. But it's still seeing much more could be done. And sometimes the way the messages are delivered are the harsh. Like it's like nothing is happening, It's like they don't see the human side, and they don't see how this is affecting us on a personal level, So it's not easy to deal with.
Hearing this feels absurd, because there's an ongoing genocide. And what I wonder is, what was the messaging then that you had to convey in order to shift some state positions in the negotiation process?
Most of them that we're dealing with, especially Western countries, I think, of course, were the most difficult to negotiate with. They know the situation, but of course you keep reminding them of the situation. For me, from my side, for instance, I was focusing a lot about stories that we've been hearing from either people we know, friends of friends, family friends, my own family. So it's this to focus on the human stories, because the law, they know it, the situation, they know it. So and I was trying to focus more on the human side. And my message also lately is more focused that it is not just about Palestine. So this is not far from happening to anyone if we continue at this pace. If we don't break this cycle right now, this could just happen to anyone. Especially we need to look at what legacy are we leaving to the future generation. I told them that, and I told many of them who are parents, you need to think seriously, what is it that you're leaving for your children? What word are you leaving? And in what path are they will have to continue? So if you don't care about Palestinians, at least we would expect you to care about your own people and your own family and your own children, because this is just gonna hit everyone, and I think it already is. So this is what I'm trying to focus on. It's not just about Palestine. It's this more global thing. It's about freeing ourselves. It's about collective liberation. It's like from this oppressive system that has been on our shoulders, our heads for as long as we've known life, basically, I would say. So, and if not then, because they are in a responsible position, then, and also what are we really doing? Just telling me this is how it is and this is politics. And I told many of them, for me, this is not what I signed up, because this is not change. If you're just accepting that this is the system, that you're not making any contribution to make the world a better place at all, because you're just moving in this loop, thinking that changing a little bit here and there would actually is enough. This is how basically, okay, I'm doing everything I can, and I can just clear my conscience and be fine. But I think it's not, to be honest. And also, I told them that I can't accept anymore. Empathy is important. I'm not denying that, but it's not enough, and I don't know what to do with it. As Palestinians, we don't know what to do with it. If you're not willing to take any action, even if you lose something of the process, if you compromise, you could bid on your comfort at this point, then we don't know what to do with it. And also, at what point we as diplomats become responsible. We can't just keep saying, I have instructions, or this is what our capital, or this is what my government is saying. I try, but there's nothing I can do. Because at what point becomes our responsibility?
Yeah. Tell me more about collective liberation. How does the struggle of Palestinians relate to our entire humanity?
So I think it's connected because it's a system of oppression, settler colonialism, and I think many places around the world are in one way or another on different forms still facing these are still living under these oppressive systems. So it is connected because I think we cannot really be free unless everyone else is free. And we need to also free ourselves from our fears, from our own double standards, from our own hypocrisy, because we all are, in one way or another, hypocritical. We're a little bit selfish sometimes. We care about, it's, I think, the human nature. And we also need to free ourselves from that and live in a way that is a little bit more consciously for the benefit of everyone, for the benefit of the planet. And that, I know it seems very idealistic and dreamy what I'm saying, and it's not something, maybe I will not live to see it, but I think it's worth putting all our efforts together, raising awareness, make sure that people are really awakening to this idea so that we can leave a better legacy for future generations. I mean, even if things totally fall apart and collapse, which could happen, but at least getting up, we'll have something to start from, and not just surrender to the fact that it's gonna collapse anyway, so why bother? So I think it's really important to connect all struggles
Absolutely.
together and see.
When I speak to friends and family, I can definitely start to see that there's been a shift in people's consciousness. People are more aware of, down to their individual decisions. What are they buying? What are they eating? Like we talked about earlier. So yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you that this sort of personal shift needs to happen, and there's always something that can be done. And of course, to not resign to these helplessness that we may feel at time, but to not resign to it. There's a few things I want to touch on from what you spoke about earlier. One, before we go on, I want to hear about the responsibilities that states have now past the Human Rights Council resolutions. What responsibilities do they have now on a domestic level?
States' responsibility under international law, they have a responsibility to put an end to a grave situation if they see that international law is not being respected. So they need to ensure that a certain state is also complying with the international legal framework that they're party to. So, for instance, in this situation in particular, I mean, it is within his obligation, I would say, to stop arming Israel, to impose an arms transfer, to impose sanctions, economical sanctions, diplomatic sanctions, which we have not seen yet. Our political will is missing, but I think there's a shift, maybe not very, a bit slow to the pace of what this is. I mean, of how things are going in terms of the genocide in Gaza. But there's a shift, and as you said, I mean, people are, I think, awakening slowly, but it is happening. We have to acknowledge that. So, and we are seeing in a lot of countries, there's a lot of lawsuits against governments like Netherlands, Germany, the US. So there's a lot of push from the public opinion to the governments. Unfortunately, I think also with the racism of these governments is demonstrating even in how they respond to their public opinion when it comes to Palestine. Would not have been the same response as it was any other situation that is closer to them, I would say. I mean, even though there's another issue that this is not really far from that. It's also close, and it will come and hit them eventually. So yeah, they do. They need to take concrete actions, and this is the time. And it's important for the people who are being taken to the streets all the time, and this is something that's great, and it's important, and it is part of making a difference as well, along with other things that we need to keep pushing for. It's like nothing alone is enough, but if we put everything everyone is doing together, then we will get a better result. Nothing is isolated at all, so everything is really important, but we need to make sure that everything that is done is well known so that others can follow up on it and pick up on it and move forward. And
how can the general public use these resolutions to put pressure on their governments?
I think one way is, I mean, of course, to be aware, to be really aware about the language, what is exactly had been asked from these governments in these resolutions, and to keep talking about them. And those who have influence, I mean, write letters to governments, remind them of these resolutions, of what has been asked from them to do. And everyone in their own capacity to push their representatives and their governments to basically take actions. I mean, one way is write letters, sharing more on social media about them, expose these governments for their double standards, and hold them accountable. Those, especially those who are supportive of these resolutions, it's also important to hold states accountable for their support, not just those who did not support. Because most of the time, and from the experience I've had in this year's here, that even those who support these resolutions, there's no accountability for them. For them voting yes, they vote yes, and that it would end there. So it's important to have a real follow-up. Parliaments also needs to be aware of these so they can push their governments as well. So basically to make them as public as possible, and they can also connect with us if they have questions. To be like, also it's good to create spaces where we can share different experiences and see how can we move forward. and how can we organize ourselves in a better way. Because sometimes it just feels like everyone or every entity is doing something, but there's this bit of separation, isolation, and in the works. And I think it's important to connect more to different entities, different groups, think together of what more could we do, and how could we use each other and everyone in their space and experience they have to exert even more pressure. Try
Absolutely.
make things different. Yeah.
Seeing the narrative from Western states the past weeks, it's becoming visible that there's a change in narrative, at least how they present themselves publicly in their relationships to Israel. Why do you think there's been this shift? Is there a political pressure that's being put on them? Is there something that's working right now, or is this just a ploy for something else that's going on in the background?
Shift, you mean the way certain states have voted, or
the way that,
or shift in discourse, or
yeah, in their discourse and in their narrative on how they're talking about Gaza and the humanitarian suffering there. I mean, the U.S. is one example, but it's so, it's so hard for the world to believe that the U.S. has any sort of like positive will for Palestinians at this point.
I mean, I wouldn't. I know that for many, like the discourse, I wouldn't call it a shift, to be honest, because when you're witnessing a genocide at this scale, and the stories we're hearing from the side, the things that we're seeing, it's even hard to imagine. It's even hard for the brain to start comprehending all this suffering, all this misery, all these horrors that we're seeing. So for me personally, I wouldn't say that this is a shift, but I can say that there's feeling that it's just becoming against their interests in many aspects to keep supporting Israel, but there's no true will yet to take a concrete action, to put an end to this, even though they have all the tools at their disposal to make this end if they really wanted to. Some are convinced that there's nothing they can do with this Israeli government and that they don't listen. And of course they don't listen, but because they're trying to talk to them and make sense into things. And this is not a government that they use logic with them. You try to talk to someone and they don't. They just refuse, and they continue to commit atrocity crimes in this way. Then you need to take actions, but they're not really willing to. But for me, the U.S., it's whatever they say, it doesn't matter at this point for me, at least, because they're still sending arms, they're still signing new bills and to keep supporting Israel military, diplomatically, economically. It doesn't matter anymore, and the narrative is still way far from what it should be. The context is completely lost on land of what the situation is really about. They don't see this as like a colonial project. They're still talking about Gaza as a humanitarian catastrophe, as if this was a natural disaster that caused it. We're still not hearing a strong narrative and discourse about the reality of why this is happening. So I wouldn't call it a shift, to be honest. And maybe, yes, a little bit, but for me at least, maybe I'm too simple, but it's not enough, and we should not. I wouldn't say look at this as a progress and be like, okay, good, here we are. Maybe it's a little shift, but it's important to keep talking and to keep pushing in all the different ways, and not to applaud such things or say, okay, I've been shifting my position, because also it's not a favor that they're doing us, it's their obligation to say things the way they are and to do what they really need to do. So that's me, but I've been cynical about the system, so
understandably so.
It hasn't been, it's not been easy.
Yeah. Dima, talk us through the human element that gets watered down. What are states really denying people of when they're voting no, when they're abstaining? Take us through some of the human stories.
So those who have not been supportive to these drafts, I would say first of all, they're just this part of the dehumanization campaign, because this also shows that we're not we don't have the same value as others. They're of course denying people of independence. They're denying people basic rights, denying people of living, because also people on the ground, of course, it's also hard to explain to them the importance of this work, because if I had a little bit of cynicism of the system, so you can only imagine how a Palestinian living in Palestine, been going through this, is feeling about this. So it's also hard to explain to them that we're trying and you're doing something that could, because we need immediate actions as well. On the short term, we're talking about the long term, and it's important, but we need to do this in parallel as well. Because right now, what is needed is to have a ceasefire, to put an end to this. And those who voted in favor also have basically said no to that, because also in our resolutions we asked for an immediate ceasefire. So they're denying that, and they're supporting basically a genocide. I would say they are complicit in the genocide, and not just the Western. I mean, there are non-Western countries who also voted in favor, and it is even more frustrating. The responsibility of these countries, to be honest, is doubled, and the shame is doubled, because there are countries who know what it means to be under oppression. Those are countries who suffered through colonialism and to be decolonized, but I would say they're not really decolonized, not in the way they should be. So it's even more painful, to be honest, to see countries from the global south support the US in a general, and be complicit in a genocide, because them not supporting, I wouldn't have any other way of describing it, but being complicit and being just obedient to an oppressive system that their people have suffered a lot to basically get rid of, and to seek independence. And then now they are where they are. This situation where where most of them are dependent on foreign aid and on Western support, economically, diplomatically, some military as well. So, yeah.
Dima, thank you so much. And I can hear you're very tired as well. I can hear it in your breath, and
Yeah.
we're hoping for the best, and we'll keep pushing.
Yes, inshallah.